Thank you. I will drink until next morning. Thank you.
Bong Joon-ho is one of the most idiosyncratic filmmakers of the modern era. The South Korean director has been working on film since the 90s and has become a mainstay of international cinema over the years. That is, of course, thanks to his impeccable body of work, which showcases his remarkable consistency and ability to deliver wild shifts in tone and style. No two of his films are alike, but share a DNA that could only be attributed to him, the power of his very singular aesthetic.
제시카 외동딸 일리노이 시카고 과선배는 김치모 그는 이사촌.
After debuting in 2000's Barking Dogs Never Bite, Bong broke into the industry properly with Memories of Murder in 2003, following that up with The Host, Snowpiercer, and Okja. However, it was in 2019 that he really made his mark with Parasite, one of the most complex and well-made pictures of the director's career. The central premise of Parasite is inspired by the director's own experiences. Before becoming a filmmaker, he worked as a tutor for a student from an upper-class family, drawing parallels with the central character in Parasite. Hence, the film harkens back to a time in his life when he struggled financially as a student, making Parasite very personal to him. This is undoubtedly part of the reason the film has garnered such acclaim. This dark thriller won both Best Picture at the Oscars and the PalmeD'or at Cannes, proving that it is a work that speaks to both the mainstream crowd and art house cinephiles. Such is the power of Parasite, which tells a particular story embedded in Korea's culture and social mores and makes that story relatable to international audiences, owning to the sophisticated themes and ideas that ring in the viewer's mind, along with the ambiguous ending that doesn't let you have the satisfaction of having everything fed to you as an audience with its epilogue. Join us as we dig into the beautiful complexities of Bong Joon-ho's Oscar-winning masterpiece and decode the meaning behind what did Bong mean to convey with that epilogue. We'll be spoiling every part of the film in the process, so steer clear of what follows beyond this point if you haven't seen the movie. After Mr. Kim stabs Mr. Park to death before fleeing at the end of the movie, Bong Joon-ho decides to cut to the epilogue where Ki-wook awakes from surgery weeks later only to find out his family is torn apart. As he narrates his plans to save his father and reunite the family, we feel a sense of completion. However, before we can linger on this image, the film fades to black and returns to the semi-basement where Ki-woo is writing the letter. The film leaves us here with Ki-woo thinking about the future while seated in the dingy lounge of his semi-basement home. Why cut back to Ki-woo in the semi-basement when we've seen him reunite with his father in the future? Well, if you think about it, it becomes pretty clear that the scenes we saw of Ki-woo's plans succeeding were not literal depictions. In fact, they didn't happen. They were mere fantasies he saw of going up in the world and acquiring enough social and economical capital to save his father from confinement. In reality, as the film has shown us throughout its runtime, Ki-woo will never be able to rise up the social structure as it is. How does Bong make this clear? Well, think back to Ki-woo and Mr. Kim's conversation in the gymnasium after the flood.
절대 실패하지 않는 계획이 만절하네. 무계획이야, 무계획. No plan. 왜냐? 계획을 하면 반드시 계획대로 안 되거든, 인생이.
This comes at a very low point in the story when it's clear that things aren't going to end well for the Kims. Then, during the ending, Ki-woo starts his letter to his father by writing,
저는 오늘 계획을 세웠습니다.
And the character is too naive to realize he is falling into the same trap that Mr. Kim warned him of. This ties into Parasite's themes of the corrupt system under capitalism and the sad inevitability of class warfare. It's a very bleak ending. Even though Ki-woo thinks he can redeem himself and save his father, the path to his dreams will be near impossible to traverse. The director has commented on the darkness of the final moment himself, and there are several themes and symbols sprinkled throughout the picture that support this reading, including the filmmaker's use of props, sets, and many visual motifs. The antique rock and the failed promise of social mobility. The Kims, believing in capitalism and the system they find themselves in, think that they can move up in the world if they play their cards right. The family is wise, and when playing by the rules doesn't work, they turn to less savory means of making a living, believing such a thing will work for them. This belief is symbolized by the treatment of the antique rock that Ki-woo's friend gives them, representing the fabled wealth they are desperate to earn.
근데 특히 이돌은 가정에 많은 재물운과 합격운을 몰고
민혁아.
다니면서
이야, 이거 진짜 상징적인 거네.
그러게. 참으로 시의적절하다.
Capitalism runs on ambition, on the belief that anyone can make massive amounts of money if they just work hard enough and put enough hours into their job. The sad reality is that not everyone can achieve that kind of success. Even those who rise the ranks only manage to do so by forsaking their values as human beings. The promise of social mobility and the capacity for growth is, hence, a false one. The falsehood is revealed in a very subtle way in Parasite. When Kiwoo returns home after the flood, he finds the antique rock floating in the water, indicating that it is in fact a fake susok, since an authentic stone would have sunk to the floor. This is also the reason Kiwoo does not die after the rock hits his head, because a genuine antique would have crushed him. Hence the promise of wealth that the stone represented is also rendered false. Class inequality and the use of stairs and elevation. If you think about it, stairs and elevation play a significant role in the film. The sets all subtly indicate the class of the characters throughout the use of stairs and elevation. The elite Parks live in a double-story house. The struggling Kims live in a semi-basement apartment, and the old housekeeper and her husband make their home in a literal basement, as low to the ground as one can be. Stairs represent temporary mobility through the classes. When Kiwoo visits the Park household for the first time, he takes a large flight of stairs upwards to reach their neighborhood. When the Kims rush home during the flood, they walk down endless flights of stairs to arrive in time. And when the secret basement finally reveals itself, the characters move up and down the staircases, often hurting themselves and each other in the process. The shift in elevation is also reflected subtly during the sequence where the Kims are hidden underneath the table. Even in the same house, the Parks are above the Kims, lying down on sofas, while the poorer family lies hiding on the floor. These subtle hints indicate the dehumanizing nature of capitalism, which places human beings in differential positions and gives them little control over their circumstances.
그러니까 비 안 왔으면 어쩔 뻔했냐고요.
Class warfare and the meaning of the title. Capitalism breeds and encourages a natural scarcity of resources. The system would not run if everyone had enough to live off of, and hence individuals are forced to compete with each other for the ability to live fulfilling lives. Parasite takes this into satirical extreme in depicting the flat-out violence between the Kims and the occupants of the secret basement. They both want to leech off the Park's fortunes, and they'll do anything to win the war for wealth. One way to interpret the film's title is to see the Kims as a parasitic family latched onto the Parks. However, another way to view it is less sympathetic to the wealthy family. Parks are depicted as largely oblivious and naive. They have none of the cunning or resourcefulness of the Kims, and it's clear that the only reason they have the wealth they do is their standing in the elite segment of society.
근데 연기력도 연기력이지만 이 댁 식구들은 참 잘 속아, 그지?
사모님이 특히 좀 거시기하지.
맞아. 이 사모님이 참 순진해, 착하고.
Capitalism, the actual parasite in the film, concentrates money at the top and doesn't let it trickle down. Hence, the Parks are inadvertently just as much to blame for the Kim's misfortune as anyone else. Ultimately, each side thinks of the other as a parasite working against it, brewing the finale's bitter violence. Mr. Kim, driven to obscene anger due to the Park's lack of empathy for those under them, represented by the smell they hate so much, kills Mr. Park. But not before Jun Se kills his daughter Ki Jung. The working classes fight against each other, and not even the elite are left out of the firing line. The ultimate tragedy of Parasite. The tragedy of the ending is compounded when you realize that Kiwoo realizes how broken the system is towards the end.
다혜야. 응? 나 잘 어울려?
뭐가?
잘 어울리냐고. 여기.
He takes the antique rock, which he knows to be fake, downstairs to the basement in order to show it to Moon Gwang and her husband, but by that point it is too late. Of course, you could also read the scene as Ki-woo going downstairs to kill the prisoners, but there is little to suggest that he would do something like that at that point in the film. His ultimate formulation of the plan is thus all the more heartbreaking. Ultimately, Parasite is a satirical critique of the capitalist system. When Bong was asked why the film resonated with international audiences, he said it was because
왜냐하면 우리가 하나의 나라에서 살고 있다. 지금 하나의 거대한 나라, 자본주의라는 나라인 거죠.